Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. This time it's all about the Sky Sports Fantasy Football game. It's the game with £50,000 up for grabs for the winner. Now, as we shall explain, TV fixtures are key to Sky planning. They haven't been revealed yet. So what we do have though, we do have the player prices. And we do have the overall fixtures, so we know basically which teams have got favourable fixtures. We just don't know when they fall, which is going to be important for captaincy as well. But nevertheless, we're going to plough on with this, and I think we hopefully will have enough to get you started playing the Sky game. My name is Joe, and joining me to help you get prepared is Luke. Luke, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. It's all systems go now, isn't it? Really, I mean, well, not quite as you said about the fixtures, but yeah, Sky launched obviously just a few days ago now, and there were certainly some interesting prices amongst them.
Yeah, well,
But both ways, some too cheap, some too expensive, in my opinion. But yeah, you touched on it there. I mean, we're only looking at the first 4 weeks for the guys that haven't played it before because we do have that forced overhaul
right.
first international break. So. I think the plan today, however, is to kind of look, because we don't have those fixtures and the TV games are so important, it's just to kind of go team by team, sort of what players do we like. We can mention if they're good pre-overhaul or post-overhaul. Some will be good for both. And yeah, so just get through it that way. So that's the plan.
Okay, excellent. So what we're going to do is we'll go through it team by team. Both of us will have the Sky Game website open and we'll go through. We're still a bit initially looking at them. As you said, there's some where you look and go, wow, they're really cheap, or oh dear, a bit expensive. So we're going to go across them team by team and find out who's caught our eye, and obviously refer to those four fixtures that start off. That's what we're looking at really. We're looking who's got good fixtures, and we're hoping there's lots of nice captaincy days for them as well. As we talk about the player prices, what I've done is I'm going to put a picture up of a team which is actually rubbish. It's the team I looked at when the game first launched. I went, right, who's who can I get? And so this is the first team, like literally within 5 minutes. So I put McCarthy in because I thought Southampton have good favourable fixtures. McCarthy looks good value in goal. Van Dijk, because he's just amazing in Sky. He gets points for just turning up. Doherty, I thought was quite cheap. He was around 8.5, 8.6, I think. I put in Braithwaite from Everton because he's mega cheap, and I'm not sure about that. And I'm not sure we even need a mega cheap defender. Stevens, another option for Southampton at the back. And then a 4-3-3. Maddison, because Leicester's opening fixtures aren't too bad, and I'm still not sure about Maddison. So, Armstrong could be good value at Southampton. Southampton have good fixtures. You see, there's a Southampton theme here for value. Fernandes, I know he misses the first one, and we are going to address that. City and United missed the first game week, but United in particular have really good fixtures for the rest of that pre-overhaul. So I sort of want Fernandes in, and I might use a transfer to get him, or I might have him in and just go in for 10 players. That's a choice to make. And up front, I've got Kane, Aubameyang and Werner, because apparently, according to Sky, I can afford them all. So thank you very much. And so there's a lot of choice there, but I think it's really important with that potential of Fernandes to have some expensive players in there. So that's sort of what we'll come to, and I'm sure after our chat there'll be I'll be completely changing that, and there'll be lots of other players I'll be looking at. So yeah, let's go team first. Let's go Arsenal. What we do is we're not going to mention every player, obviously, but just with Arsenal, any players that particularly stand out, great value, not so great value.
Yeah, that's it. And for Arsenal in particular, I mean, we start at the back. For me, Martinez at 6.3 instantly jumps right off the page, but obviously we don't know whether he's going to play or not, do we?
No.
The thing with him is if he is going to be the starting keeper, then I think he's the best keeper basically pre-overhaul and after. Just get him in your team and that'll be that done. I think that pretty much kills the game. So I hope that's not the case. Maybe I'm slightly off on that, but he's just a little bit cheaper than the likes of Ramsdale and the other good keepers in the game, and obviously plays for on paper a better team. So I think that would kill the game. So I kind of don't want that to happen actually, because I think we've already got a few enablers. So for me, Martinez is definitely a standout for Arsenal. I don't know how you feel about that one, if he would be straight in your
It just
team.
depends when Leno's back, and also whether Martinez has replaced Leno effectively. Because Leno's 7.3, not interested.
No.
But at 6.3, Martinez, yeah, definitely. Especially the first two fixtures are really good for Arsenal. So, and they're a top team. There's not, people keep forgetting that Arsenal on the slide and things, but they're still a top team. They've still got top players. Who else at Arsenal kind of jumps out at you in the player prices?
Well, I mean, there's potentially a big mistake here, isn't there, in Saliba?
Yes.
Who is an incredibly cheap 5.7 million. You'll have to forgive me. I don't know what he's like on bonus potential, but if we go with the rest of the Arsenal team, there probably isn't much potential bonus wise. They don't often seem to hit the passes. I mean, they might in the odd game. And as he's a centre back, tackles probably won't be coming his way. But obviously that is dependent on different players. Some players manage to still do it, like Soyuncu example was an example that still managed it. But it's just that price, 5.7 million, as one of the cheapest starting players in the game, if he is starting. But that's the thing, we just don't know if he is. So it's going to be very much a friendlies and what Arteta's saying in conferences. If it's looking like he's going to play, then he is another one who pre-overhaul, for those first two games in particular, home to Sheffield United, I think that's a pretty good game. You wouldn't see a clean sheet away to Liverpool, would you? But potential there for 2 or 3 out of 4. And then after the overhaul, I mean, I think he'd pretty much be the enabler we're all looking for.
Definitely.
My only concern there would be that the defensive slot in Sky is a really, really good slot. So it's almost like if you use your enabler in that defender slot, you're then stopping yourself from getting potentially a Laporte, a Trent, if you see what I mean. But if you're playing 4 or 5 at the back, absolutely fine, just shove him in there. So
he is really good value there. Just to remind people, Arsenal start with Fulham and West Ham as well before that Liverpool game. So you've got Fulham, West Ham and Sheffield United. I would say that's potential on paper for 3 out of 4 clean sheets there. You don't know what the bonuses go, and it's pre-overhaul, so try them out possibly. Let's have a look. Pre-season, we'll find out a bit more. What about do you want to have midfield and strikers together? I mean, obviously we've got to look at Aubameyang. He must be the main one, obviously. But are there any others that appeal?
Well, I think Turney as well on defence, 8.1. I think that's a pretty kind play. If he is going to play at left back all the time, he has got the potential for the odd tackle. I mean, fullbacks have always got the potential for tackle bonus, and he obviously has attacking returns in him. So I do actually quite like that price at 8.1 million. I still probably wouldn't go there to begin with, but if it's one of those ones where in the first 4 games he's looking good on the bonus and he's playing every game, looks offensive, then suddenly you've got like a mini Trent, I was going to say, but not quite, maybe a mini Robertson and there. So that's definitely one to look out for. As for midfield, I don't think anything interests me at all. Maybe Saka at 7 million if he is like nailed on and playing very well, but I wouldn't expect bonus or anything. He could be an enabler at 7 if you need it though. So he's one.
I noticed with the kind of I like playing in FPL, price points, and in Sky is quite good to do that as well because you really can kind of plug and play these players. And when I was looking at different formations, the sort of 7 million-ish midfield role as a sort of enabler but could get me some points. That sort of screamed out to me. And there's quite a few players in that price range. A lot, actually. And, Saka, great 3 out of 4 fixtures. Yeah, I think that's a good one to look out for.
That's definitely right. The price point thing is a big thing. It can save you a lot of transfers in the long run. Sometimes you want a player and then suddenly you realise you've got to make 2 to get them there because you've just 0.1 out or whatever. So trying to pick those players who've got some nice people around them is quite good. And that's often the downfall of the really cheap defender. If you go for that route, fill up the rest of the price in your team, and then obviously that cheap defender is a blowout for whatever reason. Suddenly you're in a bit of a pickle, but this season we've got quite a few of them, so it shouldn't be as much of a worry as in past seasons. But otherwise, I think the only other one is Aubameyang. I think given the starts they've got, it really is going to come down to the TV fixtures here. I mean, maybe people go with him regardless. But what I'm hoping is that we might get a 2-0 situation here. Seeing as though Man City and Man United blank in game week 1, there's always the chance that Arsenal will play Fulham and then they play West Ham before Man City or Man United even play a game in game week 2.
Yeah.
So if that's the situation, I will be inclined to use a transfer, I think, and just have Aubameyang, especially if any of those Fulham or West Ham games are an individual day, then you've also got the captain on top of that, if you see what I mean. So, I mean, there could be some lucrative moves there involving Aubameyang to begin with.
So that sort of initial setup I've got at the moment where I've sort of got a slot for Fernandes, but I've also got these 3 strikers. So instead of that, another option there would be to have 3 strikers, don't have the slot in midfield for Fernandes at the start, but make sure you can move on one of your main strikers to that, because of course in Sky, your forwards and midfields and defence, as long as it's a traditional formation, you can actually move those around. So Aubameyang can become Fernandes in midfield quite easily. That's something I would definitely look at. As you said, it's going to depend on fixtures. Shall we move on to Aston Villa? I'm going to be quick here.
Yeah, it's going to be very quick, isn't it?
Right, none. Okay, well, let's move on. I don't know out of Steer or Nyland who is going to be the goalkeeper there. I'm not interested anyway because Aston Villa missed the first fixture. So I think pre-overhaul, we're just not interested. But ones to look out for, potentially, if Tom Heaton remains injured for a long time, and the indications are he's back around post-overhaul anyway, Steer at 6 million, Nyland at 5.6 if you're looking to save a bit of money in goal, but I'm personally not. Looking through defence, no.
There's just nothing, is there? I honestly think let's just move on. There is no one. They've missed the first one. They're not good for pre-overhaul. We get to check them out, and then after that, I mean, the Grealish is there. He has been a bit of a darling for Sky sometimes. He got 170 points last season, man of the match. He fits that category of dribbles past people, which seems to flag up. I mean, there's certain players when you watch the game and they get you off the seats, and that literally is what man of the match will go to quite a lot of the time. The Traore.
There's one player I do want to mention though, and that's House, the defender, at 5.4, because he has attacking threat. And I'm not thinking of him pre-overhaul, but have a look at him post-overhaul. He's 5.4. If you are looking for that cheaper, if you do get a cheaper defender in, you get in a bit of pickle and they get injured or they're just not starting. But House is starting and he's getting the odd goal. 5.4, you can move down. But that's how desperate we are. Let's move on. My team, Brighton. Yeah, anyone scream out to you for Brighton? The first four, they have Chelsea, not so great. Then Newcastle, Manchester United, not so great, and then Everton. So there's potential for a couple of those matches pre-overhaul, but it's not the greatest run pre-overhaul.
I mean, I think that's going to be one after overhaul for me. Again, unless the TV fixture screams something. Ryan at 6.5, I think is still a very good option in goal. Might not be the very best, but he is one of the cheaper sort of nailed on starting keepers for a team who can get a lot of save points and stuff. So I do kind of still like him. I think Lamperty at 6 million really stands out from their defence, just because he's the cheapest one, to be honest. In terms of passing bonus, Webster is actually pretty good. So he's probably, if you had all the money in the world, you'd go for Webster. But Lamperty at 6 million could be real value and one to watch. He's obviously got a lot of potential, but not for me for the overhaul. Pre-overhaul, sorry. Midfield, there's just nothing that stands out to me. Trossard, 7.6 million could become
it's that
at
7
some
million
point.
or so price bracket again. It's a good one. It's a good one. But yeah, Trossard, as a Brighton fan, and most fantasy managers will know, Potter, the manager, loves to rotate, which is okay in a team like FPL where you've got a bench, but it's not so great in Sky, where you really want them to be starting. You've only got the 11, you've got no bench. I would say a bit further into the season, when Brighton have a good run of fixtures, Maupay is probably the safest up front. 8.5 as a striker. He could be one to put in to good use of transfer if there's a good captaincy day there, because sometimes if there's one of those horrible niggly Monday night games, it's Brighton against Palace, you haven't got anything coverage there, but it's amongst a good run of fixtures for Brighton. That's something to consider. 8.5. But yeah,
definitely, that's going to be Brighton's role, isn't it? I would have thought outside of Lamperty. I mean, Lallana at 7.5. I don't really know how much he's going to feature, but if he's getting passing bonus, which is a very pass-orientated team, and if we say that he's kind of playing almost a DM role, I think he'll be playing quite deep. There's a chance there because he's a fun player to watch and he can get that passing bonus. So maybe he could be an option, but it's one we don't know about
yet.
It's
rotations where I've got Aaron Moy there, you've got Proper, Gross, Alzati, Stevens. Basuma is a good option. Lots of Brighton fans like the thought of him in midfield. You've also got McAllister as well. It goes on and on, actually. Brighton have got an amazing amount of players. Too many for us fantasy managers. Great for me as a Brighton fan, though. Let's move on to Burnley. They missed the first fixture, so probably pre-overhaul we're not too keen, I would say. But yeah, any player prices spring out really to you?
Yeah, I mean Pope at 6.7 million is probably going to be in the frame for your keeper for the season. I think that's a ridiculously cheap price.
Yeah.
He's got 215 points.
How
which
did
I
that
think,
happen?
Yeah, I know. I've no idea. I think Pickford's more expensive than him, for example. It just seems mad, that one.
Yeah.
So Pope will very much be in my thoughts. I mean, him and Ramsdale are probably the two ones I'd probably look at, depending on how losing Henderson affects Sheffield United. But pre-overhaul, because they missed that first game, I'm not too interested. So that's pretty much it for me. I don't really like any of their other options. But Neil's 7.9 maybe, but that's a stretch. And he might, if he leaves and obviously goes somewhere else, that would probably make his appeal slightly more. And then Wood at 8.5, another one like that. If it's in that Mopai bracket for me, where there will be a game week where we want to bring in Wood and captain him for that sort of single game day. But you could argue maybe at 8.5 million, you could just leave him in your team.
Yeah.
Because he did get 160 points, but I feel like rotating and using your swaps in the forward positions is probably a better shout on that one.
I think Tarkowski at 8 million, me at 7.9. I think it's a teeny bit overpriced for me in comparison to some of the others that I could go for. Charlie Taylor at 7.2 possibly. But the rest, we don't know. Eric Peters, if he looks nailed on, 6.4 is not bad if you're not going for Pope, and Burnley have a good run in defence there. So, but yeah, ones to look at after the overhaul probably. Chelsea are ones to perhaps look at pre-overhaul, depending on those TV fixtures. Brighton away, then Liverpool, that's tough. But then West Brom away and Crystal Palace at home. That's a really good run actually. According to Fantasy Football Scout, on their fixture ticker, they're the fourth best run over the first 4 games. But yeah, so any at Chelsea appeal?
Yeah, I mean, Azpilicueta's actually been dropped down in price to 9 million. And
Great.
I know, especially for FPL, he's not the sexiest of picks, but in Sky, he's very good on the bonus. Very, very good. He's often in the top 5 for the season. And has been for quite a number of seasons. So to see him come down in price, I guess they didn't keep that many clean sheets overall. Is a little bit surprised. There's also this factor we're not quite sure how Chelsea will set up, like with Reece James at right back, who's another option, I think, if he's going to be playing. He's 7.8 million, which is very, very cheap for someone who probably get a few assists. So for me, it's still a wait and see on them, but Azpilicueta has the potential to be one of those really, really good bonus point scoring defenders. If they ever sign Thiago Silva, which they're rumoured to at the moment, and suddenly look at a much more solid defensive unit, maybe they get the keeper as well sorted, then Azpilicueta could feature heavily in our teams throughout the season. It's not for me to begin with, but one I'm looking out for. And definitely jump into the members area and have a look on Fantasy Football Scout at Azpilicueta, because his bonus points are ridiculous. And Reece James is the other one I said there that I quite like. Alonso as well, if he was playing, but we don't really know, do we? So with Sky, you don't really want to take the punts on those kind of players, like you've already mentioned, because you don't have the bench. So if you get Alonso in and he doesn't play 2 of the 4 games, it's no good to you, is it? In midfield, I mean, there is a very, very much a standout in Pulisic at 9.1. I feel like that's very cheap. Do you?
Yeah. I got him in last season in Sky and FPL, but Sky, he was great. In both formats, really good in Sky. He's often, I mean, just the simple eye test, he's often the best player on the pitch. So then you got your man of the match points as well. But obviously you get the bonuses as well. But he's got goals and assists in him. Yeah, 9.1. He's obviously injured at the moment, so maybe not the start, but a post-overhaul one. Ziyech at 9.4 could be good. We don't know yet. I've tentatively put him in to a draft. I have done a couple of days ago, just because I'm not sure. I'm not sure he'll go in there, and I'm not sure about that price point, but it's a sort of a Pulisic holding player, really. You don't really need it with the overhaul, but I'm just putting him in just to play around with price points in it. But I agree, Azpilicueta at 9 million. I put him in my draft as well so far.
The thing I'll say with Ziyech is that thing I touched on earlier is these players that sort of dance around people for fun and are kind of a little bit showboaty. So your Mahrez, for example, who got something like 11 man of the matches in the season he played for Leicester, which is not a surprise given how he played that way. But Ziyech is very much in that mould. So if we have that kind of player who's putting in these wicked crosses and through balls and he's dribbling past people, there is a chance for man of the match. and does seem a fairly kind price on his potential at least. Mason Mount 8.6. He looks like he could be okay as well. The thing with Pulisic as well is he actually gets shots on target quite often, so he gets that bonus. Even if he ends up blanking, it's you still pick up those 2 from him just having a couple of efforts on goal, which is quite rare for midfielders. So yeah, I think that's too cheap. And as soon as he's fit, he's very much in my thoughts.
Definitely. Werner up front, 11.1. Moving around. I mean, I did it last season. I'm going to do it again this season. It's a good tactic, probably an essential tactic in Sky. Move around your heavy hitters, your captaincy candidates around those TV fixtures so you can get a really good captain every day. And you're looking for those 2 for 0 type things as well, where the fixtures align perfectly, where you can get a couple of matches out of these guys, then hop on to another good captaincy. 11.1 for Werner. Kane's 11.7. Aubameyang's 11.4. There's room to chop and change with less than $1 million in the bank around the fixtures there. So I like the price. We don't know what he's going to be like in the Premier League. I can only assume because he's rather good. But yeah, what do you think? Werner start with?
I mean, it just seems really cheap, doesn't it? On potential. It's hard to say that when we've not seen him kick a ball in the Premier League, but 11.1 does feel cheap. I mean, he's only 1.4 more than Tammy Abraham. He probably won't even feature. And when you say it like that, well, he'll feature off the bench probably, but it just seems, crazy. And given their start, they are up there on the ticker for the games, like you said. So I feel like Werner is very much going to come down to TV games there. If Chelsea don't have a single TV game or a captain day, then perhaps you can leave him out and just check to see how he performs. But if they've even got one, I very much think that I'll probably cover him. I imagine his ownership will be quite high. He's already at 20%, which is quite significant. Sky seem to love this new player in the Premier League thing when it comes to man of the match as well. I mean, all eyes are going to be on them, so that's why I mentioned the Ziyech, the Werner. I would very much think that if Chelsea win their first game, that one of Werner or Ziyech, if they start, is going to be getting man of the match. So it's just something to bear in mind, I guess.
That's what I think. Let's move on to Palace. The run's not great. Southampton at home to start, maybe. Manchester United, then Everton, and Chelsea away. The Manchester United and Chelsea are both away. I'm not interested. But any player prices spring out just for when Palace do look interesting, fixture-wise?
I mean, the only one is Ferguson, really, at 6 million. If he's the new Wan-Bissaka and he's getting tackles and stuff and they get the odds of predictable clean sheet at home to a poor side, then fair enough. But when Lamperty's 6 million as well and seems a bit more secure, I'd look there. But no, not for me, overall.
Yeah, Guita in goal, 6.6. But that's the same sort of price range as some of the others. So, much better options. Let's move on. Everton. Now, Everton are a funny one because they are actually top of the Fantasy Football Scout fixture ticker. Although they start with Tottenham, they've got West Brom at home, Crystal Palace away, Brighton at home. So there's a lot of potential for, on paper, clean sheets and attacking returns. I guess, looking at that, Richarlison is a striker in this game. And he's 10.3. So that's a teasing price, 10.3 for a striker, because you can move to him quickly from the likes of Kane, Aubameyang. But I don't know, 210 points. He was the second highest scoring midfielder last season. That seems cheap, doesn't it? To me, 10.3.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just that striker slot, isn't it? Which you don't really want to be using on an Everton forward, but. Again, his time will come. There will be a point where we'll probably want to bring him in for a captain day. The thing with Richarlison, he got 4 man of the match awards last season. That's not, the best. I think was 10. So it's not the very best, but he's obviously got that chance. But with him, he often got bonus points through other means because he's obviously an all-action kind of guy. You see him running around like a headless chicken quite a lot. He got tackle bonus 8 times, which is a surprise. He got shots tier 1 8 times. And he actually got tier 2 a couple of times for tackles and shots as well. So, yeah, he's one of those sort of reliable captains that we can bring him in for that home game against someone. And even if he doesn't score in it, you're probably going to come away with about 16 points off the bell, or maybe a little bit less than that, but something around there. So that's kind of what his role will be for me pre-overhaul, although they've got the good games. I don't think I like anyone else. Gordon's 5.7, this new kid. Which is incredibly cheap. So if he is going to have a breakthrough season,
at 5.7 million, all he'd need to be doing is starting games there. He could be an enabler, but apart from that, I'm not really interested.
And as you were saying, it's good to if you can use that enabler slot in midfield rather than defence, and can splash out on the likes of Van Dijk, etc., and Trent Alexander-Arnold there in defence, then that is quite useful as well. Obviously, is it Branthwaite, Everton 4.6? There's your Gilbert of this season. So if he's starting, Everton have a good run. He's there, but yeah, where do you go? How do you run away from him? It's difficult. You need to have a bit of money spare elsewhere. Let's move on from Everton. Great fixtures. It's just I'm just not sure about their form. They're a team in flux, and they're still not. Their midfield it just needs an overhaul, in real life football. So we don't know how it's going to work out. Fulham have a great run as well, third best in the fixtures, first four. Arsenal, Leeds, Villa, and Wolves. So there's definitely potential there. I was a bit disappointed to see Joe Bryan at 6.9. I think he's been overpriced. Just I think people have seen the playoff final in which he scored twice for Fulham and thought, right, that's him. That's for him forever. He's a good goal scoring defender, which he's not really. So yeah, I looked at that. But yeah, any other players that spring out price wise?
I mean, the interesting thing with Fulham is that they're known as this possession-based team, aren't they? Which obviously sends alarm bells to Sky players because they could get passing bonus. But coming from the Championship into the Premier League, it's a whole different game, isn't it? So I would have to sort of sit on the wait and see side of things here to see whether that's actually achievable. We've actually been here with Seri, if you remember. John? Yeah. Who actually is he back at Fulham now after on loan? He might be, I think. Or did they sell him? I'm not sure.
There's at 6.6 in midfield, Anguissa could be. We don't know yet. I think he was out on loan last season. He's right. Back. But no, they're very much wait and see. As you said about that possession game as well, I know as a Brighton fan, you can be a lovely possession-based team in the Championship, but when you're coming up against Man City, etc., suddenly you're not in possession. You can't get it back, so you're no longer you're a possession-less team, and that could be Fulham. Wait and see. Good fixtures though. The kind of thing pre-overhaul, I'd either want to go in on a player from Fulham or not at all. I'm not going to make a transfer on a Fulham player, put it that way.
Yeah, and I think Mitrovic at 8.7 million, that is a very kind price. Every season there's a cheap striker that does much better than you expect. And yeah, their fixtures, they're a little bit mixed, but generally okay for the first four. Again, with this whole Mitrovic thing, he's the hub of the team. I would be surprised if they score any goals that he's not involved, and then the man of the match is not sort of heading his way. So I think it is viable to set up your team with Mitrovic in for the first four, as long as you're looking to rotate the other players, like you said, and just leave him in for those four. I wouldn't be swapping him in and out, particularly. I think transfers are far more viable later on down the season than sort of. That's the thing. Struggling on identifying when to use transfers is a real skill in Sky.
Yeah.
And if you're using a swap for one game for Mitrovic pre-overhaul, I'd suggest there's probably a better use later down the line.
Yeah, just don't do it. Stop playing Sky immediately if you're doing that. Another promoted team, Leeds. Mixed bag again, fixture-wise. Liverpool start. And then Fulham at home. Sheffield United, you never know. And then Man City. So half good. Those fixtures do not appeal to me pre-overhaul. But looking down the fixtures... obviously, they know what they're doing with Ayling and Dallas as attacking fullbacks. 6.4 for Dallas and Ayling at 7 million. They could be tempting, possibly. But you look at the price difference, 7 million and 6.4. That can add up. So Dallas at 6.4 would be the one I would look at there. I don't know about the defence because they had Brighton's Ben White, who was arguably their best, or at least one of their best players last season. And he's now going to be no longer there. So I don't know whether they're going to keep any clean sheets. But anything else at Leeds worth mentioning before we move on?
I mean, I'm not sure who their starting goalkeeper is. Is it going to be Masilia?
Yeah, that's it. So we won't know really until we have a good old chat with Leeds fans. But because they're not a team, I'm not particularly interested in Sky first off. I almost don't care who the goalkeeper is. Yeah, when you've got the likes of Nick Pope, who are great value, and he even misses. I would even take 3 games against of Nick Pope against 4 of whoever's in goal at Leeds. So,
well, you make a great point actually, because if you actually go to total points for the season for all players, and you sort highest to lowest, there's Van Dijk at the top as usual. He's always there. Kevin De Bruyne, etc. But when you start working your way down, obviously most of them are very expensive. As soon as within the top 20, you'll start seeing probably 10 goalkeepers.
Yeah.
Goalkeeper position is very important in Sky because they get those extra 2 points for the clean sheet, and they can obviously quite easily rack up saves bonus. So it's actually one of the most important positions to get right, I would say, and can get a lot of points.
Yeah.
Total points we're talking here. So the value that these keepers offer is incredible. So even when you look at a player like Masia, who's 6.1 million, Casilla's 6.5, so if he's starting, then fair enough. You think, it might be okay, but then when you compare it to the likes of a Pope, who's probably going to end up getting you an 80 more points or something, suddenly it's not a good idea to cheap out on your keeper unless you just manage to hit goals with the odd Fabianski and stuff we've had in the past. But it's not that often that happens.
Let's move on to Leicester. Good pre-overhaul. I mean, yes, they play City in the third match, but it's West Brom, Burnley and West Ham are the other 3 out of their 4 fixtures. So that's why I put tentatively Maddison in. I don't know what I want to do with Leicester, but I feel I need to have some Leicester because there's good fixtures, and there could be some kind of TV fixtures where you end up wanting a Leicester captain. I guess Jamie Vardy's going to be the headline one.
Yeah.
That 10.8 for 238 points last season. Does Sky know? Has he got an injury or something? Has he no longer got legs? But because 10.8 for Jamie Vardy seems pretty cheap.
Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking there, to be honest. I know that people are a bit down on Leicester because of how they performed at the back end of last season, and how long can it sort of go on for. The guy's 34 years old, but he still won the Golden Boot again. And every time Leicester have a good game, and arguably there's a few in these first 4, he's very much in my thoughts as bringing in as a captain. So yeah, Vardy will be in and around my team quite often, I would imagine, throughout the season. Aside from that, I mean, the one that interests me from the midfield more than Maddison maybe slightly is Barnes, but he's just not nailed, so that's a bit of a worry for Sky.
Yeah.
When you go for defence, obviously Soyuncu was very, very good last season. He's had a massive price hike, so I'm not really too interested at 8.3 anymore. I suppose the standard, I mean, Pereira is 9.2. People might think that's ridiculous, but Pereira is just a different beast in Sky.
He's the one I want. If Leicester have a good run of fixtures like they do at the start, and if Pereira was fit, which he's not, he's definitely the one. 9.2, great value, and there's clean sheet potential as well.
Yeah, he got 175 points last season, and he missed quite a large chunk of it. Yeah. He's fantastic for his tackle bonus, for his all-round game, to be honest. But aside from that, actually pre-overhaul, they may offer us a very cheap route into covering sort of a lot of other premiums because of what they enable. But Thomas is 4.6 million, which I think is the cheapest price in the entire game. So Chilwell's rumoured to be going Chelsea, isn't it? It looks like
I think he's signed. I think he's pretty much signed. Yeah, I think.
Okay. Christian Fuchs, as far as we know, is injured, and they don't have another left back as it stands. So you could cover the Leicester's pretty good games with Thomas for 4.6 million. And if not, you've still got Justin, who was pretty good last season as well at 6.3, which is also cheap. And obviously we know Pereira's not going to be around, so that he's even more secure. So I do think that one of Thomas or Justin, or maybe even both, might be in my team as things stand for the first 4, just because of what it enables elsewhere. If they manage to get 1 clean sheet or 2 clean sheets out of 4, that's extreme value. I mean, at 4.6 million, he just has to play.
Even if he doesn't play, I would argue over the years in Sky, one tactic that I've used sometimes, which when you get players like this, is a bit preposterous to go in and play with 10 out of 11. Because when you think about the budget, you're just spreading that budget in. So if you're getting a 4.6 dud who's not playing at all, you are also moving effectively at least 3, 4, 5 million from a normal defender into another position. So you've suddenly got another very good premium, and especially if you've got the likes of, if you want 3 premium strikers, Fernandes and De Bruyne, something like that, it's actually doable if you go for just 10 players, because Sky gives you that, having Thomas in at 4.6. But as you said, he might actually just play. He might get clean sheets and returns and bonus. We don't know yet. So one to look out for. We sort of the part in the alphabet. We start to come to the sexy teams. Liverpool, City, Manchester United all come next. So let's go with Liverpool first. The fixtures. I didn't think the fixtures were that good, but this is Liverpool. But I like the start against Leeds, and then Chelsea and Arsenal. I'm not sure about in terms of like Salah, Mane, etc. But then they've got Aston Villa away. So I looked there, and obviously it's Van Dijk 10.9, and he's the only one I've got at the moment in my draft, and even in TV fixtures, he's the one I would captain anyway. 268 points last year, but failing that, any other sort of prices kind of leap out for Liverpool?
I'm kind of with you here. I feel like, I mean, obviously we're going to all have a lot of Liverpool over the season, but pre-overhaul, I feel like you can. If there's any time to get away with not having many Liverpool in your team, it is probably now.
Yeah.
I mean, Van Dijk for me, I just don't think I can go without him, regardless. Like you say, home to Leeds, that's got 9 points written all over it. Got 9 to 10 points all over it, hasn't it? 3 points for passing bonus, actually. So, I mean, he could easily pick up an attacking return in the first 4 as well, or something, or a man of the match as well. But yeah, Van Dijk, I don't think I can go without, even at 10.9. The thing with him is he often gets it in virtually any game. So, away to Chelsea, home to Arsenal, not the best for it, but there's still a very strong chance he will get it. So he's straight in. I don't really like the double up. I sort of did that last season and Liverpool didn't start well in defence. I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I guess it's just the away to Chelsea game doesn't sort of strike me as a definite clean sheet on paper. I'd say home to Arsenal, home to Leeds are pretty strong, but even away to Villa, I don't know, I suppose maybe they could get 3 out of 4. So Van Dijk's in there as kind of insurance. And because of the price of the rest of the others, I think we can go elsewhere, at least pre-overall. After that, Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, Joe Gomez, they're all in contention. They're all fantastic value. Alisson's still in contention. Like I said, the goalkeeper spot is a very important spot. And even though he is a premium at 8 million, if he plays the whole season, he will be valued at 8 million. Like, I don't have any question on that.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Henderson at 8.4 million is very interesting. He's one of these guys who, you're never going to touch in FPL, but if he's playing, then he gets that passing and tackle bonus. And that's quite a cheap price, I think, for what he offers. Go on.
I was just going to say, out of Salah and Mane, with the price difference, it's only 0.4, but when you're looking at Kane 11.7, Aubameyang 11.4, Werner 11.1, and then you look at Salah at 12 million, but Mane 11.6. So obviously you can do Kane to Mane, for example, no problem. You can do Aubameyang to Mane with just 0.2 knocking around the bank. So you can go really... So with Salah, as I said, it's Van Dijk for me, and then possibly a defensive double up. And then the third choice would be one of Mane or Salah. And so far, I'd probably go for Mane, even though slightly less points, but I think it's just easier to move in and out.
I think the big decision will be: do you have Salah in your team? I mean, TV fixtures are going to play a massive part here, but he's only 25% owned at the moment. So only 1 in 4 have actually got him. And I mean, if you're going to captain Van Dijk on the days, which most of the time you probably should do you need Salah for these games? I mean, home to Leeds, again, I just said Van Dijk's probably a 9 or a 10 pointer there. So do you sort of roll the dice and go try and almost double that if Salah does really well? Maybe. But then sort of away to Chelsea, home to Arsenal. Are those great fixtures for Salah? I mean, he has got a fairly good record against some of those teams, I think, but he also wasn't particularly good away from home quite a lot. And there's obviously 2 away games out of the 4 to start with. So it's definitely one to think about because of those individual days and saving transfers pre-overhaul. So if you've got Van Dijk as your captain, do you need to transfer in and out Salah or etc. when you can cover you can use a Werner, for example, and cover Chelsea's fixtures. So a teaser.
Moving on to Man City. Now Man City miss the first fixture, and then they have Wolves, Leicester, and Leeds. That's 1 out of 3 that's any good. It is Man City though, obviously. But I'm going to say it now. I haven't got any Man City in my draft. I don't think I'm going to bother with any Man City, and that's a potentially dangerous move. But if I want to make a transfer, it'll be the next team we're going to talk about, Manchester United, because they have Crystal Palace, Brighton, and then Tottenham. And these are all fixtures where Fernandes, in particular, Martial, Greenwood, a few of the others could do a lot of damage. But I just think for Man City, I don't know. Is any players appeal particularly for those first 4 fixtures, or are you a bit like me, sort of might be avoiding?
Yeah, it's going to come down to TV again for me on that one. At the moment, I don't really feel like I need to have them, so
No.
probably won't either. If we look at the fixture list and De Bruyne's got some individual days, maybe 2 individual days in there, then suddenly you're going to need him, aren't you?
Yeah.
After this, I mean, Laporte 10.3 is going to be like Van Dijk, I would imagine, as long as he can stay fit. So he should very much be in everyone's thoughts. De Bruyne's an obvious one. Rodri, similar to the Henderson thing, he's actually really, really good on the bonus points. So I guess it's just more, do we think Rodri's going to play every game? Because he hasn't always. And if he is, I think at 8.3 million, that's a pretty good price, and he will consistently get you points. So quite often of late, we spend big in Sky at the back, and we spend big up front. And the midfielders have been pretty much a dearth of talent, aside from Fernandes and Kevin De Bruyne, really. So you're kind of looking for that enabler. So you could go down the route of getting the likes of Rodri, who just tick over with points pretty much every week he plays. He's getting bonus. Like, there's almost no question in it. Or do you go for like a Saint Maximin or something, who will probably get you 2 points most weeks and then will occasionally fire? So I think there's an argument to go for Rodri over the likes of him and just sort of leave them in there. So yeah, he does sort of. Yeah,
I mean, with the pricing as well, De Bruyne 11.5, then you've got Aguero 11.8, Jesus 10.2 could be very cheap if Aguero is not playing or injured at any point, and Sterling at 11 million. That did seem a bit cheap as well, but nevertheless, similar pricing, and you can move around, and that's the thing in Sky, and that's what it looks like for me. The prices say to me I can move them around quickly and easily. And I quite like that. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a case, isn't there, for sort of a 4-3-3, depending how the TV fixtures go. Have Fernandes, this is ordinarily post-overhaul, have Fernandes, De Bruyne, some numpty, some 7 million midfielder, have your 4 at the back, your heavyweight defence, and then you've got your 3 forward line, and then you can chop and change around those premium roles, and even the likes of maybe not have De Bruyne every match. You know, there's room to manoeuvre there. So I quite like the prices. Manchester United, now that's the one I'm thinking. I don't want to go in the overhaul into Crystal Palace, Brighton, and Tottenham without Manchester United, but I'll probably use either a transfer or go with 10 players first off. But do you have a strategy and also any other particular prices that leapt out with you at Manchester United?
Yeah, again, the TV schedule is going to play a part. But for me, like you, I kind of feel like I want to have a part of that. So I may just start with a Man United player on the bench and take the no gain rather than spend one transfer just to get one extra player for one day. But if that player has 2 games and a captain, like we've already discussed, then maybe I will use the transfer. So it's very much a wait and see on that. I imagine that probably won't be the case, so I might just end up starting one to begin with. For me, I mean, Wan-Bissaka gets a lot of tackles. If he can improve on his attacking output, which he started to do towards the back end of the season, he could be valued at 9 million. I'm not completely sold on that because I feel like you could just spend that extra and get the likes of Robertson, Trent, etc.
He's been annoyingly better priced this season because before Wan-Bissaka was much lower price, but yeah, it's a lot of money, isn't it?
I feel like Fernandes is just flat out essential at 10.9 million. Yeah. You know, he ticks all the boxes of penalties. I mean, he's the hub of the team, man of the match,
best player
free
on the
kicks,
pitch.
corners, best player on the pitch. But he also has that chance to get the passing bonus, which is rare for sort of premiums to always pick up bonus. I mean, he doesn't always pick it up, but he's got a fair shout most games. So I feel like he's too cheap at 10.9 million.
I looked through. Are you about to say a name in terms of pricing?
Yeah. Martial, 10 million.
Yeah,
I don't understand what that's about either. I feel like that's a bit too cheap.
208 points last season.
Yeah, and it's a starting centre forward for Man United for £10 million. I don't really get that. I mean, if you see Werner's 11.1, and we thought that was cheap, you know, in FPL, I know Martial's a little bit cheaper than Werner, but only 0.5. Here, there's a big difference, really, in the way the brackets are squeezed in Sky. So I feel like he'll be valued at some point as well, and it might be another one where, you have Fernandes in, but maybe you bring Martial in for a captain day on the odd occasion. And even Rashford at 10.5. I think they're all all options. Greenwood 8.7. I mean, if
Yeah.
Sancho doesn't sign, that could be one you just leave as almost an enabler rather than
Yeah.
a cheap midfield enabler. You just leave Greenwood in.
Very cheap. Yeah.
They've got lots of potential, Man United.
Lots of potential. Newcastle, moving through them. You mentioned St. Maximin, 8.1. Yeah, he's the great, interesting, exciting player to have. And you can tell your mates how you captained him one day and got for his hat-trick or whatever, or hat-trick of assists. But as you said, Rodri could get more, and he's not very sexy. So it might be worth having a look at other players in that price range. But nevertheless, 8.1 for St. Maximin. Not too bad. Newcastle's opening fixtures, I don't think are too bad at all. West Ham, and then Brighton, Tottenham, Burnley. It's actually quite a nice pre-overhaul set of fixtures.
Yeah, I feel like he'll be quite popular pre-overhaul, and I can understand why because of those games and his price. It's like I said before, though, he doesn't really get those returns. He's got 5 man of the matches, I think, maybe even more. I could check that. It's something like 5. He dribbles past people. He's electric to watch. So I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up some points in those 4 games. But equally, I wouldn't be surprised if he got 2 points in each one. So, he may be in my team. I'm not sure. The real standout for them is Dubravka, who's just absolutely nuts on the save points.
6.7 million. Get yourself some of that. That's really good.
It is really good. In fact, let me just find Dubravka here because I want to tell you how many save points he got. So I think it was absolutely mental. Saves tier 2.
Yeah.
So an extra 3 points. He got the most in the game 13 times. So 13 times 3 is how many saves tier 2 he got, which is obviously very, very welcome. That's where all his points are coming from most of the time. And there's saves tier 1, which I'm going to find here quickly. Saves tier 1, he got 14 times. So that's 2 points times 14.
I think he's
so
I might even start with him. I think he's got the fixtures for the first 4. So his clean sheet potential definitely in 3 out of 4. And as you said, I don't even care about clean sheets with him because he's getting that. And Newcastle, they're not the greatest team in the world, so you never know with man a match.
Yeah, so I think his name should be in the hat, just because those bonus points are ridiculous. You concede to go in the first 5 minutes, you're not bothered. You're still going to come away with 5 or 6 points probably.
Now in Sheffield United's. In Ramsdale at 6.7, you have exactly the same price goalkeeper, and we talked about save points, we talked about clean sheet potential. Sheffield United could potentially have that, and we know that he was like that at Bournemouth. So 6.7, I think with Sheffield United's opening fixtures also not too bad. Wolves away, Wolves at home, but then Villa, Leeds, and then Arsenal. There's clean sheet potential there. And the save potential. So Ramsdale, it could be another one I start with. I don't know.
Yeah, I say these keepers are very, very tricky, very important. The first 4 games, you would have thought the likes of Dubravka, Ramsdale, Pope are all going to be, even though Pope's missing a game, would all be in and around the same price. They can't punish you too much. You wouldn't have thought, unless they're saving penalties in the first 4 weeks. And it'll be very much, I think, at that point, it's going to be, you don't want to be swapping your keepers every week. No. So that'll be the key decision. As soon as that international break comes, they'll go, which one's done really well, look at the numbers, and then obviously it's going to be a bit of a gut call on it because 4 weeks maybe is not enough data, but you're going to go with one of these guys, I think, and that's pretty much going to be you until the next overhaul, unless you're crazily switching them around, but that's not for me.
Looking at their defence, possibly, elsewhere, Stevens 7.9, O'Connell 7.4, Baldock at 8. I mean, they're okay. They're okay. They scream out to me. I want to get them in, especially when you look at the price of Ramsdale there. So I think we can safely move on. Southampton. Now these are a team I was saying I have targeted because they do have very good fixtures. Second best according to Fantasy Football Scouts fixture. Ticker Crystal Palace, then Tottenham at home, and then Burnley away and West Brom at home. These are really good fixtures, and they're really well priced as well. McCarthy 6.6 at goal, another goalie, similar price, great potential. In defence, you've got the likes of Stevens, Bertrand's actually cheaper at 7.3, Bednarak 7.3, Carl Walker-Peters 7.3. These are nice ones there to consider, all of those. And then in midfield, we've got Armstrong at 7.1, which is got potential. Ward-Prowse at 8 million, so you've got that 7-8 million slot as well. So that's why I quite like that price point, because you can chop and change as the season goes. And then up front, I guess the headline figures, Danny Ings. But nicely, thank you, Sky. 227 points, and his rewards, 9.9 million. So he's in Sky, that's cheap for a very good striker. So maybe an error, I don't know, but thank you, Sky. 9.9. I would get him in. I got him in for periods last season. He was great, Sky.
Yeah, he really was. He's one of the ones who gets man of the matches, not for his dribbling talent, obviously, but just because he's obviously the first name on everyone's lips when Southampton win a game, because he's usually scored.
So I'll be looking at that. Ings definitely could even start with him. Never know.
I think Armstrong at 7.1 million will be again another in that Saint Maximum category of a lot of people don't want to spend that much money in midfield in Sky, and you could end up with maybe 2 or 3 of these guys. And Armstrong at 7.1 definitely stands out. I mean, if he's starting all 4 games, you'd back him for at least maybe a goal, an assist, at least 2 or 3 attacking returns in the first 4 games. And at 7.1 million, he's not likely to get much bonus. He does like a shot. He can get some shots on target bonus, but there's often the early sub thing, which can be annoying. But at 7.1 million, I guess you just take it, right? I think he's probably going to be in my team because he just seems like such a good enabler.
Yeah, he's in my team. Even when I revised my draft, he stayed there because I just think it's a great price for that potential there. Moving on to Spurs. Now Spurs have really got a great run of fixtures. Everton, Southampton, Newcastle, and then Manchester United. So the Manchester United game, not so great. Mourinho's in charge, so we're not talking like they're going to hammer team 7-0. We're talking possible 2-1, 2-0 kind of thing. Harry Kane in pre-season, if people are wondering why he wasn't playing in their pre-season game at the weekend, that is because he went on holiday and he's on quarantine. But the likely scenario we would think would be Kane up top, Dele Alli supplying him in a sort of just behind the striker role, and Son out on the wing. Everyone saw Son replacing Kane in the pre-season and might think, hang on a minute, Son's great to get in, but he's a wait and see for me. I don't know about you, but 10.1, that's an intriguing price for Son. But Kane 11.7, there's a big price difference, but I think it's probably worth it in this case. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Kane it'd probably be my go-to there, just because they're both forwards, aren't they? And when you put that into the equation, at the end of the day, you're not picking value in that spot really. We're picking a forward because we probably want a good fixture with an armband on top. So I'm not really looking for value. I'm just looking for who's got the highest ceiling. And Kane with penalties has got the highest ceiling. He also takes. I mean, Son does take quite a lot of shots. He got quite a lot of shots on target bonus actually. So he's not bad by any means. It's not massive, but I think you just take Kane there all day just to be more secure in your pick.
I'm not interested in anyone else at Spurs apart from getting Kane in, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that. The only other one that does slightly stand out is Højbjerg, who's 7.4 million.
Yeah.
Very, very good on the bonus points, and has been since he comes to the league pretty much, and when he plays. You would have thought at Spurs it may even increase a little bit. I don't know. Maybe just sitting in front of that back, 5 it might be, or back 4. You would have thought he will pick up quite a few sort of passes and tackles there. So again, he's one of these ones who you kind of just get him. And if you are going to get him, it's a leave in. You're not going to be chopping and changing that position. So it depends where you want to spend your moves. If you want to switch from your Armstrongs to your St. Maxims, all this stuff, or do you want to just get a Højbjerg or a Rodri and just leave them in there? So yeah, he's one to think about. For me, it'll probably be, let's see how Spurs do for the first 4 games, whether he's getting that passing and tackle bonus, and then I'll consider him. But I mean, he's viable to start with, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Kane in my continued draft for Sky, and depending on TV fixtures, he's one I'm happy to have, happy to dump. So, and I'm happy to move that slot around. Moving on to West Brom, another promoted side. Pereira in midfield, he's like their main man. 7.7. Once again, nice price. 7.7, easy to move around that role. So you've got Armstrong. If you got a bit more, you can move on there. For those looking for a punt, their early fixtures I don't think are great, but nevertheless, if you want to be a real maverick, take a punt. Pereira 7.7. You've got Leicester, Everton, Chelsea, and Southampton first 4. I don't think he's going to be that highly owned. Let's have a look, see if I can get his selected by 3.62%. So if you're looking for a real early differential, he could be the one. But yeah, him or anyone else appeal at West Brom before we move on?
No, I mean, I actually think West Brom's games are pretty good. I feel like home to Leicester, considering half of Leicester's defence was out and how bad they were at the end of the season, that could be a decent game for West Brom. I mean, we just don't know what we're getting, do we? West Brom could be shocking and lose 3-0. We just don't know. But I sort of, that kind of appeals to me, that game. Then they play Everton, who we know have had some big struggles as well. And I feel like even though that's an away game, you know, if they start the season well against Leicester, suddenly that doesn't look too tough.
No.
Home to Chelsea, I mean, they've not been very solid defensively, but you'd still have to say that's a tough game. And then away to Southampton, again, not the best games, but they're not the tightest team defensively, Southampton. So I don't think they're that bad. No. And I could be tempted on the whole Pereira thing just because of the set pieces, man of the match. Clearly, you watch any game he plays and he stands out like a sore thumb. So I don't not like that price of 7.7 million. So he's in my thoughts, but nobody else is even there or thereabouts. I mean, the keeper again could be great for saves, but there's just so many good keepers.
Yeah, 6.5 for a tiny bit more or around the same. You could just get potentially better. Of which the next team, West Ham, Fabianski, 6.6. is another one to consider if we think West Ham's defence is going to improve, because you can add those saves, we know about his penalty saves, to his to clean sheet potential. That'd be good, but I don't think there's going to be much clean sheets opening for. So possibly move on from West Ham. Newcastle to start, that sounds good. Then Arsenal, Wolves, Leicester. I've tentatively got Souček in my side just because I liked his price at 7.3 in midfield. But I'm not going to start with him because I just don't think those fixtures warrant it for the first four. But he's one I'm looking at, definitely. That's 7.3. Antonio, I don't know what he's done. 8 million midfielder. Okay.
It seems mental.
I would like him post-overhaul. Possibly pre-overhaul, but post-overhaul, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's just a flat-out mistake, isn't it? I mean, the one thing with Antonio, I guess, is the fact that he's so highly injury-prone. So in Sky, that's a problem because you don't want to use those precious transfers, do you? That would be my concern. But given how he ended the season, didn't look like an injury was close. It looks like he kind of sorted those issues. But I'm tempted to just go with him because I think it's a risk not to go with him at that price. I just think that's crazy. So yeah, Antonio will almost certainly be on my team after overhaul, possibly before it as well. It depends on the captain days. And yeah, I suppose when he eventually picks up that injury, which he probably will do, I might just call it a day at that point and just think I'm not going back because it'll probably be in and out all the time. But Bowen at 7.9. I mean, again, these are players that I think are quite a good price, but because Antonio's at 8 million, he's killed all the other ones for me. Souček 7.3. I say I was interested in that, but for 8 Antonio again, I'll just come back to it.
I think Antonio, on paper, isn't he? For 8 million, he's probably the best midfielder in that price bracket. I would say. Yeah,
I mean, it's always plays on your mind that because he played up front and he got moved to a striker in FPL, that maybe we're being a bit sort of optimistic on him. That does play into my thoughts, but I just think he's such a threat from set pieces. He's, he can get bonus from the shots. I just don't see what's not to like for him. I mean, the only other one that I've slightly considered would be Johnson, this right back who's rumoured to start the season. He's 4.9 million. So again, it just fits into that enabler category. I'm probably more up on the, because the fixtures are so bad for West Ham, you can get minus points for him. So I'm more up on the Leicester ones, but it's just one to think about. You can potentially start.
And final team, Wolves. It is Wolves, so bad fixtures can be good fixtures for them. So they have Sheffield United, Man City, who they beat twice last season, and then they got West Ham and Fulham. I think these are great fixtures for Wolves. They're not one I would move on to, like say Fernandes. They're one I would start with, and I've got Doherty in mine, 8.6. Doherty's 8.6. There we go. That just seems like really good value at the back. So I'm very interested in him. And Jimenez at 10.3, not to be ruled out at 217 points last season. But what do you think of Wolves?
I mean, that price for Doherty does seem very too cheap, doesn't it? I mean, Otto's 8.3, Bowley's 8.2, Cody's 8.1. So for 0.5 more, you can get Doherty over Cody. That just seems nuts to me. The only thing I'll say about Doherty is he doesn't do well for bonus. I think he got tackles maybe once, possibly twice. He got shots on target a couple of times, but that's still not. So basically, just right off bonus, he's not getting it, and that's often what we look at in Sky. So that would be my only concern is he will be getting quite a few 2-pointers. You are going to rely on the clean sheets and the attacking returns. But luckily for Doherty, they get clean sheets and attacking returns quite often. So, I still think that's a pretty good price. Vinagre.
Yeah, I was going to say with Doherty as well, 8.6. He's verging on another million or so. You can start getting into the Pereira category of attacking defenders. So it's quite a nice price point to go in if you've got a bit of money in the bank as well. And of course, you can save money. It's like a bit of a cash cow as well. You can, if you do need to make 2 moves down the line. This is more post overhaul, but yeah, I like the price. But
yeah, I think for me. Unless he's getting attacking returns in those first 4, which he could quite easily get because it's Doherty, I might avoid him until after it, just because of the clean sheets. Maybe you wouldn't have thought in the first 2 he'd maybe get them. Maybe West Ham and Fulham he could do. I don't know. I'm not decided on him. I still like him. Definitely after overhaul he's in my thoughts. But Vinagre at 6.5 as well. It looks just a bargain, doesn't it? I mean, again, I just mentioned it. I'm not sure how many clean sheets he will get. He often can get subbed early, I think. And bonus points, not great, but it's just, if you're looking at 2 clean sheets there, maybe for the West Ham and Fulham game, maybe even the Sheffield United game, they aren't great for scoring, are they? And they've even beat Man City to 0 as well. They beat them 2-0 last season at some point, I think. So I suppose there's a reasonable shout, and that just seems like a nice price, 6.5 million. He's in that sort of Justin James category where you can have 2 of those. I mean, currently in my draft, I've got Justin James and Vinagre as kind of my 2 enablers, alongside just a very expensive front line and an expensive defensive line. So kind of like that, to be honest.
Definitely. Okay, so we've gone through all the teams there. So we've got some questions. We'll just go through them. We've quickly before we go, but we have answered a lot of these already. But we'll give them a mention as well. So Phil McMahon asks about general transfer strategy. He says he always runs out of transfers, and this will be my 3rd season at it. I guess we're talking pre-overhaul here. I mean, I've already said that I'm happy to spend 1, maybe even 2, but definitely 1 transfer pre-overhaul. But would that be sensible, or are you the school of thought where it's best to spend none in the pre-overhaul and maximise towards the end?
Okay, well, the overhaul's a fairly new thing in Sky. It only happened in the last 2 seasons, I think, maybe 3. Possibly, I think it might only be 2. But for me, you get 40 transfers. There's 38 game weeks in theory. Not quite the same for Sky because of just the way it pans out. But you can roughly plan for 1 a week and just pretend the overhauls don't exist. So I'm not opposed to using and getting off to a good start. Does feel good in this game. I know it's it shouldn't matter at the end of the day. Your final score is all that matters, but getting off to a flyer, it does feel good. And I feel like using 1 a week, so 4 before overhaul, is not out of the question. I would aim for that sweet middle ground of about 2 to 3, if you can, because it does feel like in the end, if you're using a swap and then you get to overhaul, you're not getting the benefit of that swap for a long period of time, are you? You're only getting it for 1 or 2 days. So all I would say on that is what we've mentioned. If you are going to use your swaps, make sure they are coupled with the armband. Don't just make vanity transfers. I mean, even if there's even a shout to say that, say Justin doesn't start for Leicester or Vinagre, they signed a new left back. I would be tempted not to even sub him out for another 6 million defender who's probably not going to get you much points for 3 weeks. I would just sort of leave that person in and focus on those armband swaps. That would be my thoughts anyway.
In Your Dreams asks, aside from Van Dijk and Laporte, which players have good value for bonus tiers? And he's particularly looking at that sub 8 million pick. So we mentioned loads, so take your pick out of those. But there's definitely a lot of value, particularly in defence and goalkeeper. Don't ignore them. Around the 6, up sub 7 million, I would say, let alone 8 million. But Antonio 8 million in midfield looks good. But yeah, any particular standouts?
Was that for bonus? Did he say? Sorry.
Yeah, not just in, but he said which a good value for the sort of sub 8 million category. Could be good for bonus.
Yeah, I think Antonio Armstrong stands out. Stephanie pre-overhaul. And in defence, there's quite a number that we've listed, but those would be my sort of main ones. I think Greenwood's got the potential. I mean, to be incredibly cheap price, 8.7, and then I think Mitrovic for the other forward who just looks quite cheap. I think it was 8.7 or 8.3, something like that. He's another one that stands out. I think at least pre-overhaul.
In Sky, you can play 2 teams, and so a lot of people, myself included, for the second team, tend to be a bit more maverick with that one. Take a few punts, and if it doesn't go right, doesn't matter. It's just second team to play around with, but we're allowed to do that. And Kieran Piddock asks us what our suggestions are for our second team. He didn't bother with one last year, and he felt he missed an opportunity. So I've already explained what I do. Is that the sort of thing you do with your second team?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two schools of thoughts, and I have tried both ways. Well, there's probably more schools of thoughts, but in my mind, one thing I've done before is completely match it up to my A team, so it's the exact same team, and then on those tricky days where I'm not sure who I'm going to captain, I kind of split it. And especially before overhaul, you get to the end of your 4 weeks, whichever team's doing better, we'll get a fresh start with both of them. So that just suddenly becomes your main team. You've almost got two chances of getting your captain armbands right. So I do quite like that strategy. It's probably the safest play. However, I can guarantee you now, come the end of 4 weeks, when we go to the top of the leaderboard and we look at the best teams in the world, you will see nearly every one of them will be eggs in basket. There will be one team, like, I don't know, it could be anyone, and we've seen this before. So let's
Sheffield United defence. 5 Sheffield United defenders. There you go, number one.
Yeah, exactly. And the same. Let's say Fulham win all of their games surprisingly 2 or 3-0 or something. There'll be a team with 11 Fulham players that will be at the top. Now, picking who that's going to be is almost impossible, but you can almost treat it as a throwaway, I think, and really go massively eggs in one basket on one team. At the end of the 4 weeks, if it's nowhere to be seen, then you can just kind of use it for cup days or individual. I mean, there's prizes for weekly prizes and stuff like that in Sky usually, so you can kind of use it for that. Or just not bother with it is an option. But it's almost like that free chance of just going mental and suddenly being in the top 10 in the world for just pure craziness. So that's another option that I kind of like.
And just finally, a question from Jack Ladbrook was saying that he's new to Sky. Why do we wait for TV fixtures? I think we've hopefully have covered that, but it's worth reiterating. With the TV fixtures, then you work out who is playing on the possibly Friday, then you've got the Saturday, Sunday and Monday. You want a captain for each day. So with the TV fixtures, you know who are playing those days. And some days you can get something like, I don't know, Manchester City against Fulham or something like that on a Monday. You're going to want a captain in that day. So that's why we look at the TV fixtures. So hopefully we've got that covered. It's a big difference from FPL. It's a lot of sort of within the game week tinkering that you can do. And you can also do that without spending transfers as well, if you sort of plan right within your team, moving around the captaincy. That's why it's so important. I just want to remind people that all the fixture details that we mentioned, the fixture ticker and also the stats as well, all available from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. This is available at a reduced rate of just £17.50 until the 31st of August, before it goes up to £20. Still great value, well worth it. I know it's something both of us use a lot in Sky and FPL. Luke and I will be back before the first match week, when those TV schedules will be known, and we'll have a much better idea of who we're picking, and our sort of strategy for those first 4 weeks before the overhaul, which is basically a wild card for those with an FPL mindset. So Luke, thanks so much for joining me. Goodbye and good luck with the season.
You too, Joe. Can't wait for the next one. See you later, guys.